Hello, welcome back to Scott Family Homestead. Today we are getting our very first flurries of the year. Probably not quite pick it up on camera, but it is starting to snow, which means that I need to catch up on all the outdoor things that I've been putting off for way too long. One of those is this irrigation line that we have run around this property. It comes out from a spigot on the back of the house. It goes over to this garden over here under the driveway. It waters the pigs and the cows. It also serves as irrigation for the high tunnel, as well as the other gardens and such. So what we need to do before we get the hard freezing temperatures at night, we need to disconnect all the irrigation lines, and we'll only be using this for watering the animals. So we want to get all the water tanks set up in a place that makes sense. Last year we had the water tanks for the cows back behind the barn, and then we had a water tank for the pigs. This year we're adding a new water tank for the cows that are going to be across the marsh area. So I'll get those set up. Today I'm just going to be moving this tank over closer to the barn, and then from there I'll get the freeze miser attachments hooked up for all of these water tanks. So here we have Rory. Hi Rory. I'm going to get the freeze misers hooked up on all these water tanks so that they don't freeze at night. There's been a couple of nights where it has frozen, but during the day it gets warm enough that they've thawed out and able to run water after that. But it would be nice to get this on an automated system that is completely freeze-proof. So I will show getting that set up. I just got a few minutes here on my lunch break. I'm going to move this water tank down over by the barn so the other cows have access to it as well. Right now they have a smaller water that I've been having to fill up a couple times a day. So if I get this moved over, I won't have to fill it up quite as often. And since it's starting to snow, it's time to disconnect all the irrigation lines and all that fun stuff. Here we have the irrigation line coming from the house. It comes up and there's a T here. This direction it goes off through the grass into the high tunnel, and that's where we run all the irrigation off of. So we're going to disconnect that and drain that out, and then this line just goes to this water tank that has a float on there. Looks like the float bracket has come off, so we'll get that fixed. Put a freeze miser on there to keep it open and thawed out for the winter, and then we'll hook up the overflow to a hose that I've still got out there. So that should do it for this side of the barn. The other side where the spigot comes out, we're going to show what we're going to do over there too. So these are pretty easy to take apart. Just unscrew these, and then I'll unscrew this one as well. It does take a bit of a pull. Alright, so I was able to just pop that off there. I had to use two hands to get that off. There's just a barb fitting on here, and then this will screw out to seal that on. That's all there is to it. There's no sealants or solvents or anything that needs to go on here. Easy to take apart. And this line goes to the greenhouse, and this is downhill, so if there's any water in there, it would have drained out at this time. So I'll just unscrew this and take this off. Alright, so you can see down there where I had the water tank, this line of hose is all one solid piece until we get to right here. There's a little splice in it, little connector there, and my assumption is that that is where I had the freeze miser set up last year. So that should wrap around the barn. We can put the water tank there and hook up the freeze miser to it. and be able to have water there. Hi, Digger. It's a very curious cow. So I'll disconnect this right here and see if that runs down there. If I have to use a small piece to make it the rest of the way, I'll do that. And get that set up so the cows have fresh water down at the base of the barn. I do have an overflow. I'll show this when I get that set up. I do have an overflow hose that runs along that fence line and down into the marsh so that the freeze miser can continue to drip through the winter to keep that water from freezing, and then it'll drain that water out of the pasture so that hopefully it's not a huge muddy mess by the end of the year. Alright, so what we did there is I took a T connector off of that drain spout and replaced it with an elbow, because the other end of that T just goes out to the garden. So now it's just an elbow, can focus on watering the animals and have the irrigation removed from the system. Alright, this is the water line where it comes underneath the driveway from the house. So I have the poly tube come out and run around and go to the base of the milk house. It comes around this way and then it splits. One side goes up to the cows out that way, and the other side comes down around the milk house. We got this line that needs to be buried that goes around behind the chicken coop, and that one goes out to the other cows that are up on that hill, and then the rest of it comes down along the barn out to the pigs. Right now we have a garden hose hooked up to it. We're doing some work in the barn. I needed that. So all this needs to get ready for winter. So let's get to it. All right, I need to go into the pasture with the bull. So I'm gonna grab some grain to distract him and the rest of the cows in there. I could probably go in there with him without putting any grain in there, but it's always just a good idea. Give him something to focus on, and then I can get my work done without being too terribly concerned about what he's up to. So, alright, so let's go give this to the cows, and we'll get to moving that water tank. Alright, they can all see me walking with the bucket. Alright, there we go. Alright, hopefully that'll distract them for a while. We'll get this water tank moved. Alright, first thing I gotta do is empty this water out. Got it propped up on some rocks right here. So I'll get those taken out. Let's see if I can tip this thing. Gonna need 2 hands. All right, got all the water out. Hopefully that dries up before any of the cold hits. Let's get this moved down to the other side of the barn. All right, here we are. This side of the barn. We're gonna move this panel and get this installed underneath this crossbar here by the gate. So we'll get that all set up, fill it up with water, and then we'll work on winterizing everything. All right, getting kind of close to the end of my lunch break here. But I did get the water tank moved. I got the hose routed in that general direction, and I just went to turn it on. So climb over this fence. We'll go take a look, see if it's filling up. If it is, I will connect the float and get that hooked up. Looks like Lorelei is thirsty. So there we go, we've got water flowing in here. So she's able to drink. That hose right now goes up around this pole and along the side of the barn. So we removed all the water line that goes out this way out to the high tunnel, brought their water tank in over here. Now the water line is only going underneath the driveway, in front of the barn, down along the side, and then it will go the other side of the barn down to the pigs and to the other cows out there. So I will get the float shutoffs, the automatic waters. I'll get those hooked up either tonight or maybe tomorrow, and then I'll install the freeze misers on there as well, so that we can get those going, and we should be set for cold weather. So that'll get the cows ready for winter. It'll get the pigs ready for winter, and then we can start working on some of the stuff that we have around here that we need to clean up, like that old shed that's falling down, and all the kids stuff, outdoor play stuff that is out in front of the barn. So lots of progress today. Kind of limited on time when you're just working during lunch breaks and stuff like that. So we're making progress. A nice mild start to the winter, but we should be ready for when cold weather finally hits. Good afternoon. Welcome back to Sky Family Homestead. We have a bit of a water issue happening today. The last 2 nights it's been below zero. I think the actual real field temperature was somewhere in the 20s below zero. And we had some of our water freeze up. And recently I had taken some advice from somebody who had left a comment on a video saying, you know, you can dial back the water flow on each of these freeze misers so that you're not using as much water. The water pump doesn't have to run, and you kind of save some water that way. So I went ahead and tried that, and it worked really well up until the temperature, the actual temperature went below zero. And it's really cold out today. I think it's about 16 right now. That's the high for the day. And we ended up having our water freeze up, and this is the longest run. This one, it goes all the way back to the barn and then up to the house. It's probably, I would say, it's at least 300 feet of water line. before we have our freeze miser, and which is more than what they recommend by quite a bit. So we had this one freeze up today. I'll kind of show this one. It goes through the woods here out to our pasture. I'll show we have right out there down that trail. And so the water froze up, and we're gonna get this thawed out and hooked back up so that tonight this thing can run again. But let me show right here. That's the water tank. I've already chiseled some out. You can see the cows have come and drank quite a bit out of it. And the actual hose is laying on the ground right there. So if I look at the end of this, I already took this, grab my pocket here. I've got the actual freeze miser itself. I took this off. It was all frozen up. I took it inside, got it thawed out after I chopped a hole in this tank. So the cows were able to get some water. And now, if I look at the end of this hose, right there, it is completely frozen up. And you can hear it. You shake it, you can hear that ice in there. So what I figure here is that the water is frozen up all along there. At some point last night with the wind and the cold on this hose, a portion of it froze up. And I think if I had left the freeze miser valve, I'm sorry, not the freeze miser valve, but the valve just before the freeze miser. So we have this little valve on here. I had this turned probably something like that. And that reduced the amount of water that was moving through this hose. And it saved quite a bit of water. It actually did its job, like I said, until it got below zero. And then we ran into issues last night, or the night, well, it was last night or the night before. I thought I was running yesterday, but I never actually came out here to check. And the amount of ice that's on here is very possible that it was frozen up yesterday during the day as well. So now I get to roll this hose up and bring it into our basement. And I'll roll it up, bring it inside, get it thawed out. It does not take long. This hose, this poly tube is very thin walled, which is good and bad. It makes it freeze up kind of easy. It keeps it from breaking when it does freeze, but it also thaws out really fast. So I'm gonna get this rolled up. We'll bring this into the house, in the basement. We'll let this thaw out, and then we'll get it hooked back up later today. All right, so I got the hose all wrapped up, but we got one little snag here, and that's that this hose, there's a T intersection right there. It goes underneath the dirt all the way along the back side of this chicken coop, and then I've got it coiled up down around the back side of there. So I've got two options here. I can either try to snake this hose through this underground area, and it's only down like maybe 2 inches underground. It's just enough so that I can use a tractor and scrape snow off this driveway if I need to. But I'd rather leave it buried so I don't have to lay a new one on top of the ground here. So what I've decided to try to do is I'm going to take this T intersection off, and I'm going to swap it out with just a straight coupling so that the other areas that I have water running don't lose their water. As soon as that water starts rolling, that's going to freeze up. So I'm going to put that into a straight coupler and keep the water flowing through there. I want to see how much of this is frozen. I'm very likely it's going to be frozen right up to the T. That's just kind of how these things work. If water stops flowing at any point in these hoses or at the ends or wherever, the whole hose ends up freezing up. Just kind of how everything goes. There is water running this way right now. All the other waters are good to go. And then I'm going to take this hose, or sorry, this wire rather. This is a heat tape. It's just long enough I can go from one end of the driveway to the other end of the driveway I'm gonna see if I can slowly snake that through and just keep it thawing out as I go across the driveway. We'll see what happens. I might end up just pulling this out, but this is a good test just to see if this will work. I'm gonna keep that open so that it doesn't, so I don't have to unbury this water line and try to bury it again when it's so cold out. So we'll try this out while the hose is thawing out in the basement. I'm actually gonna cut it down here by the chicken coop. And if I have to just run a straight coupler later, I'll do that. It's not a problem. I've got a bunch of those. So we'll get this going, see if I can snake this in. My thought is that if it goes in just a couple inches at first, then I'll let it heat up a little bit and just kind of keep working it through as the day goes on. But we'll see what happens. All right, I'm going to take this hose off. I can actually hear that creaking, which tells me that there's frozen water right here in this this coupler. These two lines should have water flowing through them. This one that comes out towards me, that's the one that is frozen up. So I'm going to try to put a kink in this hose to stop the water from flowing quite so much. And then twist this off. It's really all it takes to get that to open up, and then kind of wiggle it loose. I'm gonna move quickly here so the stuff doesn't freeze up as I'm going. This is the coupler that I have, has a valve on it. We're just gonna leave that open. What I'll actually do is close it after I get this connected. That's closed. Take this side off of the T connector here. Wiggle that loose. Plug this in here. We'll get those tightened up and then open this up. I can hear water flowing through there again. I'll just want to double check and make sure that we have water at each of the spigots. I think I moved quick enough there. We shouldn't have frozen up. So now I'm going to take this T coupler off of here. All right, so I got the T coupler off. There's no ice in there, but look down here. It is frozen up, just, you know, like an inch inside of this pipe. And I don't know if that's going to really do anything. I was hoping that would go in, you know, 4 or 5 inches or so before we hit ice. Not really seeming like it's going to. I might just end up pulling this whole hose out from underneath the driveway here. And then when it's thawed out, I'll just lay it back on top. And just have to pay attention to it when I'm moving snow so I don't run into it. But sometimes that's just how things go. Play it by ear and do what we can do. So I'm going to get this, the rest of this hose rolled up, and I'll bring it in the basement to thaw out, and then we'll be able to lay it back out here tonight. Hopefully have water. All right, quick update. What I decided to do is just cut this hose right here at the back of the chicken coop. So there's where I was over there. That hose goes across the driveway, down along this chicken coop, and then out the corner here. What I'm going to end up doing is just running a line over top of the ground. I'll leave this one here underground, and then if it does get warm enough that thaws out, this is all at a downhill slope that should all drain out. If it gets warm enough that thaws out, I'll be able to start using it again, and I can take the temporary hose off. So that's sort of just a quick way that I can get around it. If you look at this though, yeah, that is frozen solid. There's solid ice in there. So I'll get this wrapped up and brought in the basement, and we'll be done thawing stuff out. And we'll get water running for this evening. All right, we are back with a follow-up on the freeze misers. And it is a high today of 6 below. It's just about nightfall. Tonight is going to be, I think, about 15 below. And then tomorrow is going to be a high of 10 below zero. And then tomorrow night will be, I think 23 is what they're forecasting right now. 23 degrees below zero tomorrow night. So I'm out here making sure freeze misers are working. In my last video you saw I had a little freeze up. Was able to fix that. I thought it was due to turning those valves down on the right before the freeze misers, those little valves. I found out that where this hose that runs all along here, it kind of goes up through here, goes underneath the driveway over here, and then up to the house. Where it connects to the back of the house, there's a screen on that initial fitting, and that screen was all plugged up with debris and just general dirt and whatever from the well. So that debris had clogged up that screen and made the pressure in all of this super low. So I was getting flow, less and less flow, albeit, but I was getting flow. The pressure was really low though. So I cleaned that out and everything's running really good. But let me show you kind of where we're at right now. Up here, this line comes from the house, down along here, down in the ground, and this is where it used to split. One side went up above, uphill of the barn, and then down around that side, and this other one went down along this side of the barn to feed or to water the pigs. I ended up getting rid of the line that goes up over the barn, up and over this hill around the barn, because I thought it was just a little extra hose that I didn't really need at the time. We don't have any cows in the barnyard, so let me show you what we're doing there. So I've got this hose, it comes down along here, it runs down along this side of the barn here. You've got the T intersection that I was working on before where it frozen up. It goes behind the coop, over top of the driveway, and goes all the way down along back to the cows that we have up on the hill. Down over here, it follows this edge of the barn. And let me show you where that goes. Whew. That sun is bright today. So I have this line, comes down along the barn and goes out to the pigs like it usually did. But I also put a T intersection here. We have no cows in this barnyard right now. So I just ran this hose along the edge of the barn and out to the water that sits over there. That's been working good. We're using a little bit less hose. A little bit less opportunity for things to freeze up, but let's just go check on everything, make sure we're all good to go before this extreme cold hits. All right, so we're out here with the pigs. This water is running well. A little bit of icing up happening here, but it is still flowing. We've got a little buildup happening, but we're doing good. I'll come out here with an axe later, try to chop away some of that ice, and keep that from freezing up too much. That one's doing good, but good news on that one. All right, we're out here by the cows. We've got water dripping here. A little bit frozen up, but I'll come out here again with the axe to get that chopped up. Basically what I did was put a Y connector here on each of these float valves, and then the upper part here hooks onto that freeze miser. So that should allow in the spring that when the freeze misers stop running, the float will keep the water tank full and we'll be able to keep on running right through springtime. So that one's doing good, still running water. And that's kind of like my biggest fear with this cold snap, is that the water will stop flowing and the whole system will freeze up. It'll take a lot of time to get that all thawed out and ready to go. But so far, things are going good. I got all the valves wide open. Freeze misers are running about full tilt, trying to keep that water flowing, which is good. That should keep everything open and working. Let's go check on the last cow water. All right, so coming to check out the cow water, we do have the chicken water dripping over here. This one doesn't drip quite as much because it's a little short hose off the main stack, but it's enough to keep the water open in the middle, so chickens can go up there and grab a little drink and come back. I'll come over here with an axe and get that chopped out and make sure everything's thawed out and doing well. Let's go check on that cow water. All right, this one's doing good. Still dripping water. We got it kind of just overflowing the back side of this, and it drains downhill into the swamp. But it's doing good. No ice buildup on the tank as of yet. I imagine tonight we'll get some. But again, same situation. Got the float valve with the Y connector and the freeze miser up top. All the valves are wide open. And the freeze miser is flowing pretty good, keeping that water open. I just have this hose run right down along the ground here to make sure that everything stays flowing. So I watered everybody, and the freeze misers keep them from freezing up. All right, thanks for hanging out with me over the past couple months of filming. I hope that this is helpful, and if you are early in your homesteading tenure here, you're able to pull some information from this. And if you want to use freeze misers to keep your waters running and keep them open for your cattle or your pigs, or chickens, or whatever you have, it's a great option, especially as a temporary solution to make sure that everything stays flowing, everybody has water. And then once you get kind of settled in and figure out where you want stuff, you can bury water lines and do as you wish. But I think it's a great solution. It's been working well for us. And hopefully everybody stays warm the next few days. "25 degrees below zero last night. Freeze miser's still dripping. Still doing his job, keeping the water lines open. That's what we like to see. Thanks for hanging out with me, everybody, and I hope you're staying warm. We'll catch you next time. Bye, guys.